not seem of any particular interest. But for us, it's different. Consider again that dot. That's here. That's home. That's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives. The aggregate of our joy and suffering, thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines, every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, hopeful child, inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there, on a mote of dust, suspended in a sunbeam. The earth is a very small stage in a vast cosmic arena. Think of the rivers of blood spilled by all those generals and emperors, so that in glory and triumph they could become the momentary masters of a fraction of a dot. Think of the endless cruelties visited by the inhabitants of one corner of this pixel on the scarcely distinguishable inhabitants of some other corner. How frequent their misunderstandings, how eager they are to kill one another, how fervent their hatreds.
Good afternoon. Hello, hello, hello. Hi. Okay, this picture quality is not as bad as I was anticipating it to be, but that's fine. So, hi everyone. Hi, welcome to my closet. I'm back in the closet, everyone. No, no. No, I am not back in the closet. No. But and plus I got my fucking trans flag back there, so it works. I don't know, whatever, right? Who knows? All right, so I dreaded talking about this for years. Well, not years, but like for a considerably long time. And that's because there's a lot of intimate personal details involved, and I thought about making this for years. Well, no, why do I keep saying that? Well, allow me to elaborate. It's been 2 years, roughly, almost, pretty fucking close to 2 years since all this started to happen, at least to me. I know that, because the topic is Camp Unicorn, there's details that scale further back than just, a couple years. I also know that, there are, other accounts to the story. My story, as I am telling it, is incomplete, and you should also listen to other people who are involved. Another thing to also mention is that why I took so long to do this, right? And there's a couple factors. A lot of them are rather internal factors, meaning me, right? One is I had a lot of anxiety, a shit ton of anxiety on how this stream video, if I did something like this, would be perceived. I did attempt to do what everyone else was doing at the time, which was a twit longer. I do think that it kind of went under the fucking radar for a little bit, and I don't think it ever resurfaced, but I do know that there are other twitlongers of other people telling their own stories about this, and what I'm telling you is based mainly on memory, and of what some of those twitlongers said, which means that I'm only going to tell things I feel confident that I remember. But also, I'm going to be more focusing on my own story. I will only overlap when it's necessary. And I also just want to say that a lot of the names I'm going to be talking about, they're omitted for the most part. There are some certain ones that need to be said. One of which I'll just say right now is Izzy Bear 713. And that is the Twitch handle that she goes under. Her name is Izzy or Isabel. And that is where I'm pretty much going to be focusing my story on. If, for the most part, I'm going to be changing people's names on here. I might do it, on the spot. I don't really have any specific vendetta towards anyone else except for Izzy. Izzy is the only one that I'm putting on a microscope, uncensored, as much as I am aware of, and stuff like that. So, with that out of the way, okay, let's begin. So, what is Camp Unicorn, right? Well, Camp Unicorn doesn't fucking exist, right? That's the first thing we gotta make very, very apparent here, is that there is no such thing as Camp Unicorn. It was an idea. It was a motivation, a goal, right? Something that many people were working towards. Something that, on paper, I think it would be a fantastic idea if it were executed and put into practice. And to kind of keep things, brief, it's largely from what I was told and from what I understood, it's supposed to be a collective of trans and non-binary people who worked communally off the grid of some land that was, bought and sold, off of the, Bangor Penobscot area, right? And so it was, it was going to be a mutual aid org. It was going to, if I understood correctly, it was going to have like firearm training. It was going to be like something that the community would work to replenish itself and to ultimately like bring itself back up into fruition, as well as doing community organizing for like the rest of the local area. I assume like the Penobscot Nation of indigenous people that are from this area, as well as like several other important like dual power structures that exist within this area, such as Maine Transnet and the Socialist Rifle Association and other groups and stuff like that. So this was, created with the intention, the stated intention, that there, like, it would be a place for trans people to go to if they were like not doing well, right? If you were like either financially not doing well, or if you were homeless, or if you were like struggling like really bad under like this capitalist fucking hellscape. And some people may say that this is a cult. I don't know how I feel about that yet. I'm still trying to decide if it is a cult. If it was a cult, then it was an unsuccessful one. I'll give you that. But if it was like, I wouldn't call this a cult per se. Maybe it was an attempt. I just feel hard pressed to say that word about this. But nonetheless, it was not any of what I had just previously described. The land in particular was owned by a partner of Izzy's, no longer partner now, ex-partner, who will be remained as unnamed. But that was kind of the situation, and like I've talked to them about it, and they were like, this thing is not like anything that y'all have said was gonna be. It could not be, like, just because of other circumstances, like just the nature of the area being like renovated for that kind of thing, as well as like what the purpose of the plot of land is being used for. It's farmland and it belongs to, a whole family. And I don't know, it's just like, I feel like there was miscommunication there between Izzy and said person, but I digress. That's not for me to speculate on. It's more just, I'm just explaining that what this ended up being is not that. It's not what was originally described earlier in the stream. So, with that being said, let's talk about what happened with me, okay? So, I'm gonna name areas that I lived in Los Angeles, because that is where I'm from, Los Angeles. And I feel like, excuse me, by the way, I feel like it's important that I talk about kind of like my own adventure, into getting all the way over here. And I think that's largely because I really want to make sure that people understand where I am coming from and why I made the decisions that I made, I think that in some cases, in some parts, I have made some pretty bad decisions. And I think if people were to press me on that and challenge me and say that like my decisions were bad, I would be, more inclined to agree with them in hindsight. But on the other hand, you gotta understand that the circumstances that I was put into were largely just like not good. Like, they were choices that I had to make kind of on a whim. And yeah, let's just get into it. So let's start towards the beginning of the pandemic. Like, that is where, like, and I do think that, like, right before the pandemic was announced in March, I think I had COVID, to be honest with you. I know this is not relevant, but I just wanted to say that I'm pretty fucking sure with the symptoms that I had, like in January or February of 2020, I'm pretty sure I had COVID for a little bit. I have obviously since been vaccinated and all that stuff. So go get your vaccines, of course. So with that being said, what we need to talk about is like I've been kind of like house hopping, so to speak. I don't want to say couch hopping. That was also involved, sure, a couple times. But house hopping is really the word to use here. And a lot of what I'm going to say, I had the channel back then. This channel is not new. And you can even, if you go back to my earlier videos, you can see evidence of me being in these certain places. Like all throughout LA, California, you can see evidence of me being in this neighborhood and that neighborhood and this until I get over here. Excuse me. So we start in like Santa Clarita. I've talked about Santa Clarita before. It's also not where I'm from, but it's where I was at that point in time. So Santa Clarita, I was dealing with a very abusive fucking roommate who was lashing out in violence. So I had to get the fuck out quickly, and I reached out to Regional Center, and Regional Center connected me to another household in Santa Clarita that was funded by them and funded by the state as well. For those who don't know what Regional Center is, they are pretty much an organization that funds programs for people who are diagnosed with autistic or just like neurodivergent people. As far as I'm aware, they only do that in Los Angeles area and parts of Los Angeles, like the San Fernando Valley and the Santa Clarita Valley. One of the things that was so frustrating is that if I ever like moved between the San Fernando Valley and the Santa Clarita Valley, even if it was temporary, like none of the services from one area to another could be transferred. So I had to like wait sometimes several weeks or months just to be able to get those services again. Especially since some of those services involved like employment or like getting like housing services or getting services and help with doing paperwork and stuff like that. Usually that's what I had to deal with. It's case management work, so to speak, and they would fund case management work and all that stuff. So, and they would fund different organizations to do that. I think like that organization is cool, but it's just there's some issues with it. That's a whole other thing, though. I don't want to get into that. Point is, I moved out and I moved into what I'm going to call the State House. It actually has a name. If you look it up on the internet, it has a listing, but I'd rather just call it the State House because I don't want to dox anyone, because it is a house, and also I don't want to send harassment to anyone. But to kind of keep it short, the staff there were extremely transphobic. I had started coming out as a trans woman at that time. Before then, I had come out as a trans like non-binary masculine like variant. I don't know what I would call that still. I just was still exploring my gender at the time. But when I got to the State House, I came out as a trans woman. So it was just like I was having a hard time like integrating and like being myself there because they were extremely transphobic. So one of the staff in particular, the owner actually, went as far as to say we can't have women here, and like even like this is besides the fact that he denied my gender. Like he would say we can't have women here, and I would ask why, and he would say, well, the last time we had a woman here, she wore diapers and like defecated herself and stuff like that. And I'm like, wow, that, first of all, you shouldn't be working with autistic people if you're gonna tell other people about that stuff, like that's extremely personal information that I don't need to know. And secondly, I don't wear diapers and defecate myself. So like that is a loaded fucking statement. Your claim is baseless, and so it wasn't like it mattered, right? He even like went as far as to like point at a placard that like, you know, had nothing to do with the facility and said, "See, can you read that? It says no women allowed," and it's just like it did not say no women allowed. It was weird. It was fucking weird. It was a very like hostile environment, and so of course the choice that I had then was, do I stay and assimilate, or do I run the fuck away? And I chose the latter. So, you know, I was talking to some friends, and you know, some friends were telling me like, here's some goals you should set for yourself if you want to do this, and like I kind of came to that conclusion that there are certain changes that I'm going to need to make, some radical changes and a lot of sacrifices that I'm going to have to make. And so I eventually connected with some friends in Crenshaw, California. Crenshaw is interesting, actually, because when I announced to other people that I was going to be moving to Crenshaw, keep in mind that Santa Clarita is a very upper class, you know, like very segregated, I'm going to use that word, segregated neighborhood. And like I like a lot of them were just saying, "Oh, don't go to Crenshaw. It's full of crime. You're gonna get shot there," or something like that, right? And I didn't listen to them, so I did it anyway. You know, I fucking went to Crenshaw, and it's interesting because Crenshaw was not anywhere as bad as people said that it was. It wasn't perfect. In fact, actually, there were some things that I had experienced that were questionable, but it wasn't anywhere near as bad as people said it was. Not even close. Like, first of all, I never got shot there. I was never, like, held up or anything. I was never in, like, any kind of danger in that respect. In fact, actually, that was when I started wearing, like, feminine clothing. I even had this dress on at one point. And, like, I would regularly get compliments for the way I dressed. Like, just like, wow, you look fucking wonderful. You look great. Like, like, they would say that, like, my apparel was really good, that I wore my hair really well. And there was even a time when I was trying to learn how to ride a bike. Yes, I still don't know how to ride a bike. And and like, there were people from like the fucking like apartment, like bedroom windows, from like, because we were doing this in the alley, and they were like, you know, cheering me on, like, you got this, you got this, you can do this, yeah. It was so cool. Like, honestly, I have not felt that much community support from anyone in a long time. Like, I'm serious. I'm dead serious. I always look at people with a glance of question, of suspicion, for people who say, "Oh, don't go to that area, it's the ghetto," or something like that. Don't. Okay? The only reason why they say that is because police, violence is extremely high there, which means that they are more likely to pull people over, and those people that they pull over are black. And yes, that is the reason why people in Santa Clarita were afraid of me moving to Crenshaw. Anyway, let's just get right down to it. So it wasn't like I could stay at that place in Crenshaw for very long. I had to move. In fact, like, things were getting bad at that place too. One of the things in particular was the neighbor who was actually beating like like girlfriend, and it was like to the point to where every week they'd have like a new looking piece of furniture in the dump, like, and it was like because they like had broken it or something, like a hole in the couch or like a broken table or something like that. In like, that was one reason. I mean, there's other reasons, but again, personal details. I don't want to send harassment towards any individuals here. So with that being said, then I had to move elsewhere, and so I started kind of being homeless. You know, I kept my stuff at a friend's house. And like it was really nice. Not a friend's house, I'm sorry, a friend's apartment. It was in like, I don't want to say Westlake because that gets people confused, but if you know where MacArthur Park is in like Los Angeles, then you know what neighborhood I'm talking about. The apartment in question was not that far from that location. And yeah, I even did have to sleep at MacArthur Park a few times. So when the police and the city of Los Angeles made it illegal to be homeless and to camp on sidewalks and stuff, that made me especially a little fucking mad, especially considering that, yeah, while I was living in that area, I was attacked by the fucking executioners, LSAD gangs. LASD gangs, there we go, one of those. And, I'm not particularly fucking happy about that. But yeah, I want to mention a few other things though about that area real quick before we move on to the next chapter, which is what this video is even about in the first place, because I'm just giving background information here. Things were bad, like really bad. There were days where I like didn't have food. There were days where I did feel unsafe, mainly from cops. There were a few times where I was followed, by strange men, but I was largely like harassed and followed, stalked, heckled with by cops, particularly at the MacArthur Park, subway stop. There were like cops in particular, and doing like a semicircle against this like person who was in handcuffs, like against a wall, and I was going on the subway to go get my prescription from the LGBT center, and like one of the cops turned around. I wasn't wearing anything provocative, nothing like anarchist or anything like that, not even ACAB, which I have a couple shirts of ACAB on them, and like the cop just merely like took his phone out and like took a picture of me, and I gave him the finger. I'm not one to provoke cops. I'm too much of a fucking bitch to do so. I'm too much of a pansy bitch, to do that. But I did give him the finger because, hey, I didn't ask for my picture to be taken. I don't care if you're gonna use this for evidence later. You provoked the situation, right? And so I did something that I thought was a smart move, and that was, I took my phone out as I was going down the escalator, and I made sure that my phone was, on camera mode, so that, and I made sure it was on, it wouldn't go to sleep or anything like that. So that way, if the cops did come try to get me, I would have the fucking footage. I did get ambushed, but they did not, or I almost got ambushed rather, but they did not attack me because I had the phone and I started pointing it at them. It was more like a defense mechanism more so than like a purpose for documentation. I did delete the footage, and I kind of regret doing so in hindsight because it was showing just how fucking cowardly the cops were, because they just as soon as I had my phone out, they just turned around and was like, okay, no, we're not doing this. Maybe my privilege was involved in that, but my white privilege was involved in that, but still, ACAB, no matter what. Anyway, so in this situation, as I said before, homeless, without food, constantly being harassed by cops, my emotional state was pretty fucking bad. So I took it to Twitter, and this is where I start getting into the whole details about Camp Unicorn, etc. So I take to Twitter, and this is on an old Twitter account that I had since deleted. I'm not sure why I did that, to be honest, but I did it. I talked about what living in LA was like for me, what living where I currently was living was like for me. Being homeless there, having to be harassed by cops, not being 100% sure if I'm gonna be able to survive for anytime soon, and just also I talked about my mental state, just self-harm related stuff. Talked about bulimia and all that. So in a sense, the word for that would be trauma dumping. That's what I did. I trauma dumped on Twitter. I don't know. I wasn't particularly in a good mind state at that point. I will admit. I had a heated gamer moment. We'll call it that. I think everyone's allowed at least one, according to Hassan, but whatever. So okay. So people saw that. People saw that that tweet, and it got the attention of Izzy, right? And this is where Izzy comes into play in all of this. Now, I've heard of Izzy before this specific event, and I want to make it clear, like, what point in time I'm talking about, because the beginning of the story that I'm telling is early 2020, like January 2020, right at the beginning of the pandemic, or right before the announcement of the pandemic in the United States and all that, because Donald Trump was an incompetent fucking president. Not that Biden's any better. Anyway, so with that being said, I heard about Izzy before, actually. This was back in like July of 2020 when I saw Izzy and the Surfs. They were fundraising for the organization that is Camp Unicorn, and I thought that was a really noble and valiant thing to do. And she had talked about on the stream what Camp Unicorn is, and why Camp Unicorn is important, and why it could be the next step in trans liberation. She had a lot of really big name people like on that stream other than the Surfs. There were, I think, Thought Slime was there, Chelsea Manning. I got to talk to Chelsea Manning for like a brief second. I was kind of geeking out about it. I also got to talk to Creationist Cat and Your Movie Sucks, which I thought was kind of cool. There was a lot of people on there, and I was just like, holy shit, like, just wow. It was like serotonin, boom, 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 boom kind of situation. But the reason why they were doing this, not just to raise money for like Camp Unicorn, but it was sort of like a power move, right? Of course, not just getting all these big name people on there to back this whole thing up, but it was also just like to kind of like a power move, right? The quartering, I think, if I understood correctly, they were the quartering was saying some transphobic shit, and that's what the quartering has always done. The quartering is a piece of shit, and the goal was to raise a certain amount of money. I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, like $20,000. And if they had raised $20,000, then the quartering would go on camera and say trans rights or something like that, right? They raised double that amount or something like that in the first hour, and they kept going on for like another 24, 48 hours, something like that, and they raised a fuck ton of money, like a lot of money that I think would go to like a really good cause if it went to a good cause. Knock on wood. And the quartering never did say trans rights, and honestly, like, not that I'm surprised, to be honest with you. Like, just, like, of course he wouldn't. Like, fucking shut that he is. Anyway, so that's how I learned about Izzy, and I think that the event that the Surfs had to do all of this kind of, in my mind, gave the whole idea of Camp Unicorn a semblance of credibility, right? It's interesting because it felt like, in some way, a foreshadowing into the future. I remember being in Crenshaw when I saw this happen, and I remember thinking to myself, wow, it would be really cool if this thing happened. It would be really cool if, like, I was part of this, I'm all the way over here in LA, and she's all the way over there in Penobscot Nation area of Maine. And, like, there's no fucking way that, there's no way that, like, I will ever be able to join that. And so November came. Of course, I voted for Biden because I'm a shitty fucking liberal. No, it felt like Vosh and Biden himself were pointing a gun at my face, being like, "You like Trump? No, I don't like Trump. No, I don't like Trump. Well, vote for Biden then, you little shit." Yeah, that happened. And then, of course, like, this was when I made the tweet. Like, you know, and I think as well, I was a little concerned, and, you know, I think in hindsight my concern was fruitless, because I was worried that, like, some Proud Boys were gonna, like, go into, like, downtown LA and start shooting people or something if Trump lost. I mean, the whole stand by and stand back comment really fucking had me worried. I think that in and of itself is not unreasonable, but, like, just, it was fruitless because I don't believe that ended up happening anyway. But I digress. So I made that tweet, and, you know, I went to bed that night or something like that, and because I was sleeping in somebody's closet at that point. Hey, I'm in a closet again. I was sleeping in somebody's closet, and then, you know, like, I wake up, and it's like I check my DMs, my emails, and all that. And there's people mentioning Izzy, and there's people mentioning, like, a fundraiser, and then I see Izzy's message, and Izzy's talking about how we just raised $3,000 for you to come to Camp Unicorn. And my reaction was like uncontrollable crying. Like, it was like the first time I had felt like actual hope for a future in a long time. I remember, like, smiling, crying, laughing, jumping, stimming, just going through all of that. I remember having that moment thinking, like, wow, there's actually an opportunity for me to be able to be something more than just a homeless YouTuber or something like that, you know? So, yeah, I do also want to mention before we proceed that the story in which I am telling about all of this, it wasn't without, you know, good moments. You know, there were accomplishments that were made for my benefit. There were friends that I had made. There were, you know, laughter to be had, good moments to be had, stories to be told that were wonderful. And, I mean, I'll be honest with you, most of it is without Izzy and everyone involved with Izzy, but, like, it still existed, you know, it was still a thing that I think it's worth pointing out. I feel like that if people involved in the whole Camp U thing were to see this, they would be like, oh, she's just bitching and she's ungrateful. And honestly, that was one of the reasons why I held off for talking about this for so long, is because I was worried what kind of fucking reaction I'd get from all of this. I was worried that people were gonna just, like, scream at me or something. But again, you have to understand, I didn't, like, just come from, like, you know, a fucking mansion. Like, even when I was living in Santa Clarita, I, like, lived in, like, first of all, a transphobic state-owned household, and secondly, I also, like, was living with someone who was extremely fucking abusive. We were living in fucking cubicles. If you look at my videos from back then, my videos were, like, on my laptop in the fucking backyard of the property that I lived at. Like, you know, obviously, I don't have it as bad as most people do, but it wasn't like it was a fucking great time either, especially since I was still exploring my gender at the time, and I was trying to understand, like what my role is in society and all this stuff. I had stuff to unpack. I had stuff to go through. I had my own story to live, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, So I do take the offer to go to like Maine, and the arrangement was pretty simple. It was that the idea behind it was that I was gonna come to Maine. I was gonna stay at someone's house, not Izzy's, but a friend of Izzy's, whom I will name Bob for the rest of this stream. That is not their name, and that is I am intentionally misnaming them so they don't receive harassment. But I will say some other details that are relevant, not where they live or anything, but just like gender identity and all that stuff. And it's relevant to this story, right? So the first red flag here about all of this was, at least in my perspective and how I perceived all of this, was when Izzy told me who Bob was, right? Bob is non-binary. Bob is like, the way Bob described themselves is like gender fuck. Like gender queer, gender fuck, anti-fascist, Muslim, redneck, Dolly Parton fan, all their stuff. Like, just an amalgamation of like the true identity of who they are. So they did not identify with she or he, right? But Izzy told me that this person identified as like a trans man, which is not true at all. Like, I can't even dead name that person or like misgender that person and confidently say that this person's a man or a woman. Like, even upon guessing, which I don't even want to fucking do. But like, this person was like misgendered so fucking brutally by Izzy, and even after correcting her a few times, when I learned that this person is non-binary and don't use he or she pronouns, it was like a big act of disrespect. And I eventually learned that this was something that she regularly did, especially like not honoring people's systems, as well as not honoring like pronouns that weren't really like he or she. There were people who, in like her immediate like circle who identified as Faye, and she still like did not acknowledge that. So internalized transphobia. This is a part of the whole thing. Internalized transphobia is pretty fucking awful. And yeah, so I did eventually acquaint myself with Bob, and Bob and I are still friends. I am happy to say that. Bob is probably the most true person I've met here. I have nothing but praise to say about Bob. I hope that if Bob is seeing this, that Bob knows that first of all, I'm not calling you Bob to be malicious. It's for your safety, my friend. But more importantly, that I love you. I have nothing but absolute praise for you. You are a powerful soul, and I've seen you persevere through so much. And I thank you for all that you've done for me. What you have been able to do for me is unspeakable. So thank you. But that being said, I really felt for Bob a lot of the time, because they were also struggling. And like, what Izzy eventually would do is just nothing short of making things worse for Bob as well as for me. So I lived with Bob, and Bob is living in a rural kind of area, which means that I can't necessarily walk anywhere unless I want to chop my legs off, or unless I want a heart attack, especially since this is, November approaching December at this point in 2020. So snow was a thing now. And that means that if I wanted to do extreme exercise, to go to the town to apply for work, or if I wanted to get services, or if I, you know what I mean? Any of that stuff. That means I needed a fucking car, and I don't have a car, so, and Bob was the one with the car, but Bob was also busy all the time. That's not a fault of Bob, that's just That's just a fact that Bob had to deal with, and I did also. But there were people that Izzy was in commute with that was also giving me like rides to places for a little bit, for like a couple months. That meant like appointments. That meant if I wanted to go get food, if I wanted to like go grocery shopping, if I needed to buy supplies, if I needed to go do something in particular, I would call them up, and if they were available, they would come get me. And so that's fine. But it's just like, at some point, what I learned about Izzy more specifically, because a lot of the people that like I'm referring to here when I say we are like people who dealt with this firsthand, is that and this was announced during the Twitlongers and stuff, like towards I think January or February or March, something like that, right? Of 2021. And this was where people were saying things like, Izzy is an abuser. Izzy has abused animals before. One of the moments in which, in particular, I've actually seen personally, like seen it firsthand, being the dog, I think was named Chip or something like that. Izzy was not friendly with that dog at all. Like, that's putting it lightly, and I've heard that things got worse, and that's not great. Izzy had also, on top of misgendering other people in the household, as I have mentioned earlier, Izzy had put people in very uncomfortable situations, even knowing that some of those people were on the autism spectrum. Like, for example, there was an incident where Izzy put someone on one of her live streams against their will, even though they had extreme anxiety. And it was like, the way that a lot of this was described was, and I feel similar in some ways to this, but not entirely, is that Izzy was using her Twitch platform to help people locally and abroad. And like, there was a lot of sentiments where people were saying, I really appreciated what Izzy had done, but how this happened and how we got to this point, I don't know if the means justify the ends, or I don't know if the ends justify the means. I don't know, something like that. Point is that like, people were put in extremely uncomfortable situations, especially on like live stream, and a lot of the time, like, a lot of what Izzy did in terms of her so-called activism was raising money on stream, but at what cost though? Because there was also like a lot of what was said about what the money that went to Camp Unicorn went to luxury and like impulsive spending. In particular, my friend Bob donated some money to Izzy at one point, and Izzy eventually purchased, like very like recently at that point in time, purchased a PlayStation 5. Okay, let me set in what that means for you. Maybe you think this is just like buying a Switch. It's not like buying a Switch. You gotta understand, the PlayStation 5 had not been out for that long in this point in like history or whatever, and there was a huge thing about scalpers buying up PlayStation 5s and reselling them in bulk for like a much higher price, sometimes like 3 to 4 times the price, right? So what this means, if you're following my drift here, is that the PlayStation 5 became a very high dollar item. Like, it wasn't like you bought like a PlayStation 1 back in like 1994 and the PlayStation 1 was like, $299, or maybe with 1996. I don't exactly remember. Don't yell at me, gamers. But this is a high dollar item, especially in this point in time, which means that Izzy, with the money that she raised, with not only Bob's money, but also the money that she raised with Camp Unicorn, either she bought that PlayStation 5 at a very opportune time when, you know, you could just go to Walmart and it was a cheaper price, or she did buy it from eBay and she bought it for an extremely high price. So, I don't know the details on that, but just the fact alone that she spent that money on a high fucking dollar item is kind of fucking heartbreaking. Also, at that point in time, I was on Twitch. I was live streaming on Twitch more than I was making YouTube videos. I think I wanted to try the medium out. I liked the interface of it all. I liked the idea of Twitch, especially from a gaming perspective. I eventually dropped it because I'm not really much of a gaming streamer, as you can kind of tell. I'm not really all that great at it. But while I was doing that, and how this is relevant to the story, I was also raising money for Izzy. I specifically made links that would go to Izzy's PayPal, and you would donate to Izzy's PayPal because Izzy was making claims of rent or other expenses being a serious issue. And I tried not to question too much why Izzy was given so much money during July, and then now it's December and she can't pay rent. I understand things are expensive now in this economy, and it was expensive then too, but it's I'm just a little confused. I tried not to question it back then, you know what I mean? And so I do want to mention something as well about this. Let's take a look at this. So this here is the Camp Unicorn Patreon. I just took this screenshot not too long ago, today I did. So I wanted to make sure that this is known, that this is recent. If you want to look this up, you're welcome to do so. Maybe it's been updated by the end of this stream or whatever. But this right here is an active Patreon account. So this here is just creating communal living to house at-risk trans people in the US. That's not happening. I currently live in Section 8 housing that I had to pull some strings to get, and it's not great. It was not the result of any of this that you're seeing here. And I know that a lot of people were informed that I was gonna be in Camp Unicorn, and people have wondered what has happened since then. So this is an active Patreon account, and none of it's going to me. None of it's going to anyone in particular that I know is involved. It has 18 patrons in it, $160 a month. That's $160 that could easily go to my rent right now. I'm not saying that should be my money. I'm saying that if this is being said as an intended goal for giving communal living to trans people in the US, then this is a lie. This is a scam. Currently, this should not be there. It should cease to exist. And again, I feel bad saying this. I feel bad even bringing this up, hey, maybe we should not be raising money for this, because a couple years back I would have said, no, you're a fucking traitor to the working class and trans people if you spoke against this. But now I don't know. It's hard. It's really hard because the idea of Camp Unicorn is so appealing to me, and I want something like this to exist, but that's not what this is. I haven't even gotten into all of the shit that Izzy has done to other people. I haven't gotten into how Izzy exposed people to very dangerous fucking far right people who had COVID. I'm not getting into all of the other abusive things that Izzy has done. But I think you get in the picture here that this is not a very good thing in hindsight. Like, in execution, this was a big fucking mistake. And I think maybe on that front, if you wanted to call it a cult, maybe you could probably justifiably say it. But again, I'm still hard-pressed to do so here, because we're talking about someone who, if they were even doing such a thing as a cult, then they had failed. You know, they had failed to do this cult here. And by the way, I'm gonna just say this just up front here, because some people I know who are malicious will use this video as like some, hey, you see this? This is trans people, like, and they're a cult. You know, all trans people are a cult. And I'm gonna just say right now, that's not at all what this is. This is an individual who raised money on the vulnerable act of mutual aid, meaning that like they raised money on the hope of mutual aid, but used it for personal spending and personal shit, for their own benefit, and they still are today, from what I understand. If that is Izzy is still, like, you know, getting money from that Patreon, for that matter. It should be just stated that trans people and trans identity have nothing to do with this. This involves a specific incident with specific people being manipulative and abusive. Trans identity is its own thing, and honestly, like, to conflate the two would be extremely dishonest. Also, just the implication of calling trans people a cult is also just flat out wrong. Like, a cult specifically requires a leader, which is why I'm on the fence with this whole, like, calling Izzy a cult leader kind of thing. I'm probably not gonna do that, but still. Not that I have any bias for or against her, it's just, I'm just trying to say that, like, it doesn't feel right to me. But a cult requires a leader, and the leader needs to specifically, like, have emotional control over them to such an impactful point to where they rid them of their ability to critically think for themselves, and that they're the actions that they do within the cult either benefit the leader or benefit some form of mythological bullshit that they have curated in the lore of said cult. It's a long hole, rabbit hole. This is not, like, trans people are not a cult. It is absolutely absurd to call trans people a cult, especially when the Christian God in the Holy Bible uses capitalized pronouns, as in capitalized H and capitalized E, which implies that he has a specific preference for his own pronoun. Capital letters, capital pronouns. So I'm not even going to fucking entertain the idea that transphobes are pushing that either we are a cult or that, like, trans people are whatever at this point. At this fucking point, it's like talking to a fucking wall. Anyway, but this still, like, this whole Camp Unicorn thing is a fucking mess, right? And so at this point in time, I think you need to understand a few things here. We're talking like March 2021 and onwards, right? Number one, my friend Bob was in debt at that point, and I was raising money at that point to pay off Bob's debt. Now, I understand Bob's debt is Bob's problem. It's not my debt, you know. I don't, like, even Bob was saying that, like, that it's not my debt, you know, I don't have to fucking pay it. But, and even Bob was, like, more than willing to have me keep more than half of the money that I raised. So Bob was, like I said, I have nothing but good things to say about Bob, okay? So it's not about Bob. I'm not attacking Bob. Don't harass Bob. But it's important that we understand that, you know, I was living with Bob in this rural area of Maine, and that because I couldn't help myself, I couldn't pick myself up on my own 2 feet, keep in mind that the phone that I had was Bob's phone, like Bob's work phone. So that meant that I had to make calls on Bob's phone and use Bob's phone number if I needed to do anything. That meant like applying for other phones, and paying phone bills, and like applying for like any job that I wanted to do. That meant like, and even the act of applying for a job became useless when I realized that like once I got that job, I couldn't commute there because Bob's always busy and Bob can't drive me. And I don't blame Bob for this, but Bob wouldn't let me drive their car because like, you know, it's like I do have a license, but I don't have insurance, and that means that if I crash that car, Bob would be the one paying for it, and that's not okay. So I don't blame Bob for not letting me drive the car, even though I had a license, especially in the state that I was currently living in. It just, you know, it's okay. It's not the end of the world, honestly. But you can understand though, is that like I was drilling a hole in Bob's pocket, you know, like not intentionally. Bob knew it wasn't my fault, but I didn't like it, you know, and I think Bob understands that I really felt bad for doing that, and I took as much action as I could to move out. Not to mention, you know, that PlayStation 5 that Bob, paid for or helped pay for, really also drew a hole in their pocket. And it kind of also stings a little bit as well, because Izzy had organized with Bob in the past, on some of the mutual aid groups here, including the Health Equity Alliance. I think it was said that they were both on the board, which is pretty fucking important. And I just want to say, like, out front that, like, if you are, like, working with, like, a comrade of yours and you still don't know their fucking pronouns, or you still can't honor their pronouns, then you were never a comrade to begin with, bitch. Like, I'm sorry, but no. Like, I feel that, like, some of the things that I've heard is so atrocious that I would never expect, like, anyone who calls himself a comrade or an ally or an accomplice to do, like, to anyone, including some of the abuse that happened to people on the spectrum. So some of the abuse toward people who had systems, who had different, what are those called? I want to call them micro pronouns. That's not the word. I feel bad not knowing this. It's like Faye and Fair and Zir and he, her, like, you know, those. I feel bad not knowing what they're called, but you know what I mean. Those pronouns. They're not micro pronouns though, or they're not like secondary pronouns. They're like neo pronouns. There we go. They're neo pronouns. Like, she didn't honor those either, and it was like, at this point, I was losing my connection with certain people in that community, and it was like, or that circle, and it was like, here I am on the other side of the country in a rural, like, house with someone who is being put further and further into debt every month because I am living here, and I am put here by someone who very irresponsibly relocated me here on false promises of a so-called camp unicorn that currently does not exist. It was said that I was going to be a camper by March of 2021. I think we waited until April before we realized that this was all fucking goddamn sham. So, okay. I'm just gonna say up front, like, that the next year is irrelevant, really. Like, I did move out, like, in July of 2021, and I'm not gonna talk about, like, any more of my life at that point, because it's not relevant to the story. But I think now we need to bring the question of, what do we do, like, here from this point forward? There's several things that we need to talk about. And the first thing is that we need to, I guess, be more skeptical of what we see on the internet. I think that's really like the ultimate story here, is that like be skeptical, even if it has like a semblance of credibility. It can, if you, depending on what it is and depending on how it affects you, it can actually really fucking damage you in your life and your stability and stuff like that. You know, I would say that living in LA for me was, you know, really bad, and that, like, you know, just living in LA County, I mean, it was really bad. There's lots of gentrification. It's really fucking hot there. There's lots of fires. The cops are some of the worst in the whole country. Like, I think that, you know, like, the act of leaving California was a choice that I made, and it was a goal that I had set for myself that year. And if I were to commend Izzy for one thing, it would be that she got me out of California. So for that, I'm thankful that Izzy did that. But on the other hand, it's like living in Maine has had its own set of challenges. For example, Maine is not walkable at all. Like, I haven't been everywhere in Maine, you know. For example, I have not been to Portland yet. I still have not been to Portland. I don't have a car for that matter. So I have to mainly get everywhere by foot or by bus if I'm lucky. And getting the bus tickets and stuff is not the easiest either. There's other challenges with that as well, such as money and even going to some place that sells bus tickets and stuff like that. Buses here are their own variant of challenges, whereas walking is really, really hard here. It's like there's a lot of times where you'll just be walking very long and hard walks for a long period of time, and it's just like you have to commit and you have to be in a pretty good, healthy, like, physical state to be able to make some of these walks. Whereas like in California, you could, you know, at most I would be walking for like, you know, a half an hour, and if I was like in the middle of nowhere, and then I could get somewhere like that had food or that had a bathroom or something like that. Whereas like here, it's a long time. You know, I did move, but I'm still in a very rural area. Maybe not as rural as the place I lived at previously, but I live in a pretty hard to commute area. You know, even other people who I know, it's hard for them to even get here. So it's like, it's not easy. Oh my god, my hair. I can't fucking figure out my hair today. Okay, I guess, I don't know, whatever. My fucking hair. Yeah. There we go. I look awful, but whatever, I'll accept it. You're gonna have to put up with my awful fucking hair today. Anyway. So with that being said, like, surviving's not easy here. I don't know what's going on with some of the other people that were involved. I have effectively cut ties with them too, for other reasons that are not important for this story. I'd rather not get into all of that. But the main thing to be aware of here is that this is something that I am deeply hurting from. Like, not just emotionally, but like financially, physically. I was not ready to be on fucking survival mode. I was ready to work in a goddamn commune. And I did not get that. It was a false promise. It was a lie. It was bullshit from start to finish. I don't care if the intention was there. I don't care. I'm sure Izzy's gonna be like, if she sees this, that she's gonna be like, I'm sorry, I meant to do this. I had every intention. You know, I wanted to see you do this, and I wanted to see all these people thrive. I'm sure that Izzy came from like a place of genuine intent. Okay, maybe, probably. And if that were to be said or to be argued to me at all, like, I would believe them. But, you know, intention doesn't reflect action, and the actions that we got contradict the intention. I guess cause is not an equal effect all the time, if that really what I mean. So what I'm talking about here, I want to talk about my future, right? Like, I want to talk about what's going on with me, okay? So I live in Maine. I don't want to reveal where in Maine, but I live in Maine, and I live in a pretty unsafe area. I do have housing, as you can see. I do have to pay rent, and it's pretty cheap rent, to be honest with you. But I don't want to stay here anymore. I don't want to fucking stay here. I want to get the fuck out of Maine. Not just like the neighborhood that I'm in, not just like the part of Maine that I'm in. I want to get out of Maine. Okay, so what this means is I need to figure out a way to get the fuck out of Maine. Canada is not really a choice for me, right? I've thought about Canada a few times, and I've come to the conclusion that unless I figure out some kind of underground railway system of some sort, similar to it, where I can get myself into Canada, I'm not going to pursue that. You know, I don't really have anything that I know of, any leads of any sort. And I'm not going to even entertain that idea, because Canada, from what I've been hearing with the trucker convoys and all that shit, is not any fucking better. Okay? So, let's not even talk about Canada. I've also thought about, you know, going to like Europe or something like that. Europe is something that is probably more feasible for me. Not the United Kingdom, of course, but I've thought about the Netherlands at one point. Thought about moving to Amsterdam at one point in time. I don't know how I feel about that now, but it is something that I think I cannot really fully attack. I can't, you know, engage with that idea until I get a passport, and I don't have a passport, so I'm stuck here in the grand old fucking US of A. So that means I'm gonna have to go south. That means I have to go, if I'm in Maine, I have to go to New Hampshire, Vermont, Connecticut, Massachusetts, New York. I have to go to these states, and I would like to maybe at some point go to New York City. I would like to be able to go there because, while the living there is not much better than LA, in fact, probably worse, to be honest with you. In fact, like, they have some of the equally, probably if not worse, police systems than they do in LA. They do have some of the most, like, resources for trans people. I think it would be great for me to move to New York because of the fact that all of these services that are available for trans people are there. I've heard other trans people say that, like, it's, if you say you're trans, you're very, very well off there. So I would like to move to New York City. Even if I was homeless, I would love to be homeless in New York City. Like, and it's interesting to say that, isn't it? Right? It's interesting to say, hey, I'd like to be homeless in New York City. Wow, right? Just wow. Holy shit. I've also thought about, like, you know, neighborhoods in Vermont and Massachusetts. I would like to maybe perhaps move to Boston or Philadelphia. Maybe like Lebanon or Burlington. I don't know. Like, I'm just saying, like, Maine is not where I want to be anymore. There's a lot of trauma here that I have in Maine. Stuff that I have not gotten into. And probably for the better that I don't get into the stuff. Because it's a lot, and it's a fucking headache. And I actually have a headache right now. I have a pretty fucking bad headache right now. Maybe that's why I'm extra fucking cranky at the moment. I'm like, my eyes look kind of fucking vacant because I've dumped all this shit on all of y'all. And yeah, I'm really honest with you. Like, I love Maine. Maine's a very beautiful state. I think it's underrated, the spring. The spring is underrated. Like, springtime. Like, when, you know, it stops snowing, all the snow melts, and, like, all the green comes out. I think that shit's underrated. I think Maine is too commonly associated with the snow that it does get during the winter. And by all means, the snow in the winter is very beautiful. But, like, the fucking, like, the fucking spring is where it is. I think when things bloom up, it is absolutely like jaw-dropping. It's like a fucking Disney movie. I'm not even kidding. I'm not exaggerating even in the slightest. But with that said, like, Maine is not necessarily a great place to live. Some people have even jokingly said that, like, Maine is like the last place in the world where capitalism has not been affected. I think they're joking when they say this, but I don't like when people say it. It makes me kind of extra fucking mad, because capitalism obviously has affected Maine. I mean, if capitalism has not affected Maine, there would be, like, no Penobscot reservation. It would just be, there would just be indigenous people still, like, living here and thriving here, instead of it being, like, instead of it being fucking, like, you know, colonized the shit out of. You know, not to mention the whole history with the Missouri Compromise and shit. Like, Maine literally exists because of slavery, which it's like, when people say that, like, I've heard people say that a number of times, that Maine is the last place that has not been affected by capitalism. I think, even on the pretense that they're just joking about it and they're not being serious, it is extremely disrespectful to the actual history of Maine and, like, what the indigenous people here in Maine had to deal with. And I'm not even getting on the surface of, like, I'm barely scratching the surface here on what Maine is all about. Maine is the first nation in the entire fucking country, if not maybe the only state. It is the only state in the entire fucking country that has admitted that what happened to the indigenous people in the northern, all of the Americas, really, it was a genocide. Like, this is the only state that has admitted that it was a genocide. What happened to the indigenous people of the Americas? So, or Turtle Island for that matter. That's what we're gonna call it. Yeah, like, and that's I think, when people say that Maine is like some, you know, anarcho-communist commune or some shit, people do the same thing with California. It's fucking absurd. California is a democratically run state, Democratic Party run state, and even, like, Alan Villanueva, or whatever his name is, the fucking, you know, top dog of the LASD gangs, he's a Democrat. But I don't think that makes anything about California an anarcho-communist commune or whatever, even on a joking basis. I think that is just so fucking disrespectful to some of the actual fucking bullshit that goes down in blue states, even. It overshadows it, even. And so I would say that shit happens here in Maine as well. And I think that if we're to address, like, Maine as a state, Maine is not that great. You know, Maine has, like, a lot of Confederates, even, like, a lot of races, Nazis, neo-Nazis. They have a whole neo-Nazi chapter up here called the National Socialist Club 131 up here. Like, there is nothing anarcho-communist or anti-capitalist about it. Yes, I know NSC 131 is anti-capitalist. They're anti-capitalist for the same reason they hate Jews. Let's not even fucking entertain the idea that they are based in any way. So, with that being said, I'm here to, like, say that, like, as a call to action, a couple things. One, if you know any of the victims personally who've been affected by Izzy, like, reach out to them and help them as much as you can. There have been people who have been deeply affected more so by Izzy's bullshit than I have, and I think that they, as well, as I'm gonna keep them unnamed here, I would request that y'all help them out instead of Izzy. If you are donating to Camp Unicorn, and, you know, Camp Unicorn is still going to Izzy and all that stuff, then that asset should be fucking eliminated entirely. I would also go as far as to, you know, reach out to other main organizations that are out here if you want to like help trans people in Maine, including the Socialist Rifle Association, Maine Transnet, the Health Equity Alliance. There's lots of, especially in Portland area, there's lots of organizations attacking the like homelessness and trying to, pass legislation that would help homeless people. I think that speaks volumes, and I think you should look into some of those organizations as well as some of those causes in that area. All of those would benefit trans people immensely, and as well as like the rest of the community for that matter. Not just trans people, just like all people in general, but trans people as well. But as for me, listen, like I've said this a million times, I have my links in the description, I have my music that I sell, I have my Ko-Fi link. I am hurting like a motherfucker, and I am wanting to get the fuck out of Maine. That is actually the reason why I made this video, because one, I don't like that Izzy benefited from all of this, and secondly, I made this because I'm hurting like a motherfucker, and I really want to get the fuck out of Maine. Like, I'm serious. I'm done. I'm washing my hands. I gave Maine like a whole nother year to see if I like it. And you know what? Like, with all due respect, I really don't fucking like it here. I don't. Like, it is not a place that I enjoy being at. And moving back to California is not really an option either, because then the initial problems that I had in the first place, being the overabundance of gentrification, the heat, the fires. I got my inhaler right here. I can't deal with heat and fire, and I also can't deal with the fucking police there. I mean, if I move to New York City, I may have to still deal with the fucking police. It's not like I haven't made videos on NYPD either, I have. But still, I want to get the fuck out of Maine. That is the goal. That is like there's the goalpost, and the goalpost is getting the fuck out of Maine, and I want to go through it. That's what I want to fucking do. So, if you donate to me, that'll be what you will help me do. A lot of the time, I'll be honest with you, a lot of it is helping me pay rent here, and a lot of it is to help me get food. I actually do need to get food soon anyway, but that is where I am at. I needed to be honest about this. I needed to put my fucking anxiety away. I'm tired of worrying what people are gonna say. I'm tired of worrying about being judged for like making a poor decision to come out here. Like, I don't care. Like, honestly, if you're really kicking me while I'm down at this point, like, I think you need to get a new hobby. Like, I'm serious. Like, you need to get a new fucking hobby. Like, I'm so fucking done with this. I didn't sign up to do all of this. I didn't sign up to, like, raise money for Izzy's fucking Twitch stream and for Izzy's PlayStation 5. I didn't do all of this so I could, like, be let down and put a fucking hole in Bob's pocket. I didn't come here to suffer. I didn't come here to bring people down with me. I came here because I wanted to do something with my life. I wanted to actually... Can I be honest with you? I'm just gonna be real candid with you here. I wanted to fucking stop doing YouTube. Okay? I wanted to stop doing YouTube and Twitch entirely. I wanted to actually do some on-the-ground organizing for once. That's why I came to Maine, okay? I wanted to not be making video essays. I wanted to stop live streaming. I wanted to, like, stop being codependent on this fucking income. I wanted to, like, actually, like, have a second chance at life. As I said earlier, I did not sign up for any of this shit. And so, that's why it's like, I don't like doing this. I don't like asking for money online. I like e-begging. It is dehumanizing. It is soul crushing. I don't like it. This is why I'm just like, I am so fucking tired of it. I'm sorry. Like, I hate to be so mean. I hate to be like, so, like, tense. I'm mad. Yes, I'm triggered. I'm mad. I didn't ask for this. No one asked for this. And a lot of the time I feel like I let people down even. And it's like I feel terrible because of this. that like I made promises even like, and I had to break them because of the circumstances. People often ask me, hey, how is Camp Unicorn going? And I'm like do I, like, in fact, I'm probably, at this point, I'm gonna fucking, like, if anyone ever asks me about Camp Unicorn again, I'm linking them this fucking video that I am making right here. I can't. I just simply can't. I cannot handle this anymore. You know what I mean? And that's why I so desperately want to get out of Maine. Maine is not my state. It is not where I grew up. It is the state where I was lied into fucking coming here. You know? Do I, in hindsight, you know, regret leaving California for this false promise? A little bit, yes. But I also, at the same time, don't regret it because I got to leave California. It was a goal, and I succeeded at that goal thanks to Izzy. But that is where my thanks and gratitude stops. I need to take a second. Oh. I have water a little bit. Drink some water, bitches. Alright. Well, for those who hung out, for those who stuck around and listened to me vent for an hour and a half, thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate y'all hearing me out. I do want to just be upfront with you that, you know, I do like making videos, you know, like I do like making videos, the act of making videos, you know. I like to produce content. Ever since I was a kid, I was making slideshows with kid pics, you know. I love the idea of filmmaking, script writing, editing, and all of that. And I like doing it. So, me doing video essays is like a natural conclusion for someone who doesn't have a fucking Hollywood budget or whatever. Or, rather, the resources of an indie developer, rather, an indie filmmaker, being like, you know, some filmmakers do it on no budget, and they still make something, you know. But, and I've done my fair share of short films and all that. But, at the same time, it's like, I don't like the dynamic of YouTube, like, of making content for YouTube. That YouTube is, like, the breadwinner. So, if I were to, like, kind of, like, see myself in the future, I'd like to make content, but I'd like to also have a job, an income, right? Or, like, an income that is a lot more reliable than YouTube. It doesn't seem like I'm able to maintain a Patreon anymore, ever since that one specific incident that happened in early 2020 when my Patreon was compromised by a fucking credit union. That's its own story. It's a fucking hairy mess. I don't want to get into it, but to make a long story short, I actually had somewhat of a Patreon following, and that stopped happening because of some bullshit on either Patreon's end or the credit union itself. Excuse me. I don't know. My point being is that I really, really want to be able to be in a position where I can sustain myself a little bit better. You know, I figured maybe this moment where I moved to Maine to be part of Camp Unicorn was going to be a moment where I can not only do mutual aid, but at least live a little bit more sustainably. Not perfectly, of course. We would have to prepare for the winter, and I know that was what they were concerned about when I moved here, was preparing for the winter, and they couldn't really open until March. But still, like, the goal was, you know, seemingly there, and now it's not. So that's why I want to leave. And so I guess I'm in this position where I humbly ask, please help me out. You know, like the links are there. You can buy my music. There's my Ko-Fi. There's so many times where I felt like just giving up, just ending it all. And I'm tired of being in this position. I'm tired of like feeling sorry for myself. I'm tired of like being mad all the time. I'm mad all the time. You ever noticed that? I'm fucking mad all the time. Those who know me in person know that I'm mad all the time. I don't like being mad all the time. I like laughing. I like engaging with things I'm specifically interested in. But like, it seems that every time I make something that is not about like directly about anarchism or like breadtube trauma or like police abolition or something like that, that, you know, it just goes under the fucking radar and all that. And I fear that maybe this video will as well. But like I said, I listed my goals earlier. I want to get the fuck out of Maine. That is the goal. And I humbly ask, anything you give me, please, and thank you from the bottom of my heart. That would mean a lot to me. And I know that there has been people out there who has helped me, and I thank you. I thank you all very much. Like, I am extremely sorry that all of this ended the way it did. I feel defeated almost. I feel like let down, disappointed, disillusioned. There's a lot of words that go with all of this. And it's not a good feeling. It's like betrayal, you know? Just like, I don't know. I don't regret running away from California. I don't regret running away from, like, the State House or anything like that. I don't think there was any future in me in that environment, or any of that for that matter. I just know that my future depends on me thriving. And that's my goal from now on, is to thrive. And I don't think I can thrive in Maine anymore. So that means that if you know anyone who happens to be able to take me in for a little bit, even if it's temporary, I'd be willing to also accept that as well. So, yeah, this is a call for help, a cry for help even. And I'm just being honest with you about it. I need help. I really need help. It's like sometimes I don't even know if my days are numbered anymore. It just feels like a vapid existence now, you know? I don't know. I think I'm done here. My head really hurts. Please help out if you can. If not, let other people know. I'm tired of being lied to. I'm tired of my trust being broken. I think I'm just done. Peace out. Love and respect to y'all, and solidarity. Bye.